Hello. So today we're working on my XJ. The driver's side front rotor had picked up something. I'm not sure what it was. But it heat scored the inside of the pad, or the inside of the rotor surface. I'd pulled it off before, cleaned it up. It made the grumble go away, but then the warpage in the rotor was a lot more pronounced. Um, I really need to replace the front rotors altogether. I have no idea when they were changed last. The pads still have some life on them, so I was hoping to get the last little bit of life out of the pads. Unfortunately, we're going to pull it off today and chuck it up in the lathe, and I'm going to square it up, and then we'll cut the back face, make it a lot more uniform, then polish it out. And it should be better than it was. It won't be perfect. I'm just afraid of taking too much material away and making it rewarp even more pronounced than it is now. So we'll see what we get. Hopefully it won't have the same grumble it has at the moment, because it's a little obnoxious. Yeah, if I can get another 6 months out of it, I'll be happy, and then I'll swap it out for the proper stuff. New rotors, new pads, and just be done with it. So stay tuned.
Okay, so now just setting it on there, making sure it's got a nice even seat on the lathe chuck. The lathe chuck runs pretty square, and I haven't spent much time doing lathe or brake rotors on this particular lathe, or any lathe for that matter. So it's kind of a guessing game as to how I'm going to get it figured out. Got a little ways into it, and then realized I hadn't put my pressure fixture on there, which is an old hub from a I think it's from a Ford front wheel spindle, and it works pretty good for just keeping the rotor from walking away from the face of the lathe, because that would be tragic if that came apart. Anyway, so here I'm just fine tuning it. I think I got it within about 4 thousandths, which was still not okay. In hindsight, I should have chucked it to the other way around, cut the front face, then flipped it, and then cut the back face. That would have made a much more consistent product. When we got all said and done, after cutting the front face, there was still a warp to it, but it was fairly consistent across the both faces, so it shouldn't have the brake pulsing that it had before, because it was pretty ugly when I was driving it. But just continue to double check it and tap it around until I'm happy with it before I start my cut. Alright, so now we're set it up. I have my regular drive rate set as slow as my lathe will go without going into the back gears. I touched off to make sure it was good, and as you can see it with the flash of light color running around that's pulsing, it's only touching in one spot. It ended up being about a 4 or 5 inch piece out of that big old rotor. That was all that was touching that first pass. The cast iron actually cut pretty nice with my tooling that I have at the moment. Unfortunately, that cast iron is also really hard on the lathe bed. It makes a lot of grit to wear it out. I took another pass, and then I deleted it for the footage, but yeah, this is a 10 thousandths cut, and finally got it to clean up after that. I think I did one more finish cut after this one. Yeah, you can see it's running a lot more consistent. There's still a little bit of out of or a little bit of warpage on the outer edge. So again, this rotor is pretty much just junk at this point. It'll go for a little ways, but it's towards the end of its life expectancy. So it'll get me by, and then I'll replace it and probably get a video out of that as well. Again, just looking, seeing what my surface finish looks like. Decided it needed another pass, and I actually did 2 passes, a real light skim, and then I did a spring pass going the other direction. And I got it to where it was really nice and smooth and consistent, taking all the little sharpness out of it. As you can see, it's starting to get a nice, almost a mirror finish to it as it polishes up. I don't recommend doing this on a lathe. It is a lot better to just take it down and have it done. But again, I tend to not turn rotors anyway. Usually the point where they need turn in that they're so far gone, I just replace them. Mildly more cost to replace them, but like a lot of front wheel drive cars, it's not so bad. Alright, so breaking out the 100 grit sandpaper and just polishing away. It didn't take very long to clean up to where it was almost as smooth as the side that's already been seated in. But I'll have to take it for a drive after this and make sure it's all perfect. Yep, just double checking, comparing the 2 sides. And we're gonna flip it around, and at the time I was thinking I was gonna flip or cut the front face, but I opted against it once I realized that the warp was still the front needed to be cut, and then I needed to recut the rear. But after I got done poking around with the dial indicator, realized that the warp on the one side transmitted to the other side. They were almost in sync with each other, which, when we're dealing with a 4/1000th warp, I wasn't too worried about it. Especially for this when I got to go to work at some point, and here I am just marking out so I can compare the 2 sides, where the high spots and the low spots are, and ended up being almost dead on the same, and that's where I ended up, where I just cleaned up the front face and called it close enough for this operation. Here I am just running the same 100 grit sandpaper, just give it a little bit of a clean up and hopefully make this 2 faces a little more uniform, where they'll seat up together nicely. Alright, so here we go, high-speed reassembly of the front end. Fairly simple front end. Just has 2 bolts that hold the bracket on, and then 2 pins that hold the caliper in place. I always like to have both sides snugged up before I go to the final tightening. There's there's just 2 pins. They're kind of captured in like a plastic housing, and give them a good snug so they don't go anywhere. Again, this whole front end's all been anti-seized really good, so it goes better nicely. And then there's a spring clip that snaps into the face of the rotor, or face of the caliper, and then holds up to the caliper bracket to keep everything from rattling around. I'm just putting the wheel on, and we're just about done. So thank you all for watching, and it ended up being okay when I finally did take it for a test drive.